Hi, I'm Chayale.
Hi, I'm Hinty. Welcome to your Relationshift. Join in our conversation where we explore
The nuance and beauty of Torah's perspective on relationships.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Chayale.
Hey.
We have a very incredible guest coming on today. She is the reason why I am here, I could say for myself, right, Chayale? I am here right now. I want to introduce Sara Gita Soble, who is the founder of Relationshift, who is my personal coach and has literally shaped my life, my family, my marriage. So I'm eternally indebted to her, and I am thrilled to be able to share her light with all of you. Sara Gita Soble. Step
Thank
right
you.
up. Hi,
So nice to be here. Hi.
welcome.
Thank you. What questions do you have for me today? Glad to chat.
Love it. Okay, so first of all, just like tell us a little bit about yourself. Where do you live? Just share. I want to hear who you
Okay.
are.
Okay, sure. So, my name is Sara Gita Soble, and I live in Crown Heights. I used to live in Muncie, currently in Crown Heights for almost 5 years, 4 or 5 years. I have 10 children, Baruch Hashem, and I am the very uh, grateful founder of Relationshift.
Mm, beautiful, beautiful. Okay, so Chayale and I have a few questions we wanted to ask you. Chayale, you want to start with the first one?
Yeah, sure. So welcome. It's
Thank you.
so fun to have you on. Like the students have been running the classroom, and the teacher showed up now. So we get to sit back down. So the first question, I think, is the main question, which is, how did you come up with all of this? Like, how did you compose or develop or birth the relationship principles? Can you tell us?
Yeah, sure. So it's actually a funny story. I was coaching privately. Well, I could rewind it even more. I was a high school teacher for many years. And as my students started getting married, a number of them asked me to teach them kallah classes. So I started teaching kallah classes, and this was before the current kallah teacher training. They just offered mentors, which was beautiful. So I started teaching kallah classes, and that naturally segues into relationship questions and shalom bias questions. And that started me on an exploration of, what to answer and what works and what doesn't. And eventually I came to a point where I was no longer doing kallah classes, but I was just coaching shalom bias privately. And at a certain point, one of my clients said to me, she said, Sara Gita, you aren't doing regular coaching. You're coaching with a set of principles. And I thought to myself, she's right. There is a certain set of principles. Like, okay, there's all this like shalom bias advice and this and that out there. But there was a certain guiding set of principles that I would consistently return to. And what was it? So I went to sleep that night with this on my mind of like, what are these principles? What are these principles that are the guiding foundation behind what I'm coaching and what's successful and what's not? And in the middle of the night, I woke up and there they were. So I quickly grabbed a piece of paper and I just scribbled them all down. And I woke my husband up and I was like, here, look at this. Waving the paper in his face. He had no idea what had hit him. And that's how the principles were birthed.
Wow.
What a gift.
It's so fascinating. It's so interesting to me that your client saw that there was a set of principles that were behind. Like, I'm hearing her saying, this doesn't sound like advice. This sounds like you're teaching a truth. And what is that truth? Meaning it also is advice, but it's advice that seems very much based on something.
Right.
Not,
Certain
not,
truth.
yeah, not meaning there's advice that's based on research. This works. Like it's based on the fact that when you do X, when you do A, B happens, which is a certain type of advice. If you're polite to people, they're polite back to you typically. That's like a social experiment. But you're talking about a guidance that's based on a set of truths. I think that really does speak to what's unique about the relationship model.
Yeah.
So it's and they had to come in the middle of the night because
Quiet, out of the stillness.
the stillness of the night.
Right.
Beautiful. So tell us more. So you developed these principles and then where was Hashem guiding you? Like what happened next?
So that was when, we had already started the relationship training company. I think at that time we might even had been using a different name. I don't remember at what point we changed the name, but but I just started bringing them into our classrooms, and it kind of codified our whole approach that there's Torah truths. Hashem created the world. Istakel bar Isa bar Alma. Hashem looked into the Torah and created our world. And there's Torah truths in terms of the systems that are operating inside of our own psyches, inside the dynamic in our relationships. And once we had those crystallized, and once we had those, culled and developed, we can actually use this to transform homes and transform lives. We don't have to. We have it. We have Torah. We have Chassidus.
So
So
Hindi,
beautiful.
you're the first group from the first group of coaches that were trained. So do you remember the principles being introduced?
Yes, most definitely. I think, well, we'll just turn the questions on me, but I think for me, the transition period was very interesting because I think it went from like having an understanding that this is advice or like this is a good idea, this can help, to the grounding of this is a truth, this is a universal truth. Um, and the fact that it was rooted in Chassidus and sourced in Torah, to me as a godly soul, I just felt so aligned immediately with the principles. And I mean, our audience knows how much they impacted me, but um, as soon as Sarah Gita developed them, there was like a sudden like coming home experience.
Mm,
Yeah,
well said.
it was beautiful. Okay, fine. So that's amazing. That is absolutely incredible. So there is obviously a huge shift in the company organization. What were some challenges facing you as all of this was developing?
So there was a lot of challenges. One challenge was the process of gaining haskama, and the credibility that brings and the backing that brings. So that was a process of who's going to be willing to sit through and spend the hours and take that time. Baruch Hashem, we did find Rabbanim who did that. So those were the kind of external challenges. And I would say another challenge was how to actually integrate, because these principles aren't anything new. Okay, some of them might be different than what you usually hear. You maybe learn them in Chassidus, but not know that it applies in these situations. But for the most part, the concepts should be ones that are familiar. So the question really was, how do we integrate this in a way that we're living these principles? And it's not, when we're looking at a principle, sometimes the truth of it could feel like it overwhelms our human experience, whereas the process of integrating a principle means that I need to take into account my human experience in order to be able to integrate a Torah truth.
Mm. Beautiful. Beautiful. So you had the truths, you had the understanding, you knew the direction, but like how to get other women there. Um,
Mhm.
I'm guessing, I mean, the fact that this was such a slow, beautiful development for you, and then how I'm guessing in your personal life, and then how you also were starting to bring that to clients, it was kind of like something that you were learning from within. Like, how was I bringing my human experience to these Torah truths that I knew, and how was the integration process happening for me? Is that what helped that challenge?
For sure, for sure. Take example the principle of divine design,
Mm,
right? So we know this is a principle of the very first um, our very first mitzvah. Rambam writes, there's an Abishur. So what is this, and what does Abishur mean, and who is the Abishur, right? So again, it's a principle that's easy to take into, okay, well, there's Abishur, so therefore I don't have a right to feel sad or angry or resentful, or I should always be happy, I should always be grateful. And of course, we do want to be joyful and we do want to be grateful, and we're human, which means I need to bring myself along in the process. And so the principle of divine design is one that's easy to use as a form of denying what I'm going through, or I could include in divine design um, my experience is also divinely designed. So
mm,
while my experience is not there because that's what it's meant to be, it's there because that's where I need to start. And I can
mm.
cultivate what I'm feeling, and I can cultivate my experience, and I can, bring in awareness of divine design, and that will uplift me.
Beautiful.
It's very powerful because I think a lot of people for a long time had this sense that Hasidus has the answers. Hasidus has the answers to the struggles that people are going through. But there was still a gap, which is what you're describing. There was the wisdom of Hasidus and the person's experience. And I definitely felt this way. No one was closing the gap. And Hindi, you're describing as soon as you heard the principles, it's like, oh, it was that coming home feeling like, oh, that's what it is. Um, so you're looking at a truth like Hashgacha Pratis, that every detail of your life is designed by Hashem, and you're looking at the person's experience, and you're saying, where's like in my experience right now, where can my entry point be into this from where I am right now? Like if I have to take one step forward, what's that step going to be? What I'm hearing you say in this particular principle is that whatever experience I'm having is part of that divine design. So I'm going to work with where I am right now. That's going to be my starting point. Not that it's somehow out there. It starts here. Um, which maybe can you give a word for that? Like where you're saying the entry point to divine design from.
So, I mean, I would say empathy for my experience right now. Take somebody who's in a relationship where that is very challenging, very painful, right? So a person could look back and say, oh, it's been, 20 years in this relationship and I'm just struggling. And what's it all for? Right? Why am I 20, 30 years into this relationship and only now discovering that it could have been different? It feels so, um, it's devastating. It really is very devastating. Or I could look at this relationship and through the eyes of divine design, I have so much empathy. I have so much compassion for for myself, for the situation. There's so much softness, right? That this is not my fault. This is not, oh, I should have or I could have known. Hashem designed what I knew until now. Hashem designed my experience to be what it was until now. And right now, where I am right now is perfect because I'm cradled in Hashem's arms. I'm cradled in Hashem's plan for me. So, being able to come from that being able to come from that angle. And now I can look at the healing and the growth in my own self and in my relationships. It's much more wholesome.
Yeah. Very powerful.
Really, really beautiful. So that started that integration experience of like studying what is that gap between us and these truths that we know.
I feel like retreats were also a very good I don't know if it's like a way to play with the integration of ideas. I feel like a lot of the brainstorming around how to integrate principles happened in I should phrase it as a question, not a statement. Do you find that in that process of developing a retreat, which is the idea of integrating the truths, where you're learning that gap is closed?
Yeah, it's very helpful. I mean, if I can say, Chayale, was the impetus behind our very first retreat when you marched into my bedroom and said, Sara Gita, we need to make a retreat. I'll help you do it. And then Hindi showed up with, okay, and you can use my space. So right here, so much integration was
Right.
created.
I don't even know if I don't know that I knew what I was pushing for, but I'm just remembering the brainstorming is watching in your development of workshops a lot of integration tools show up, which was very cool and interesting to see. So let's take it to the next question. What's the principle that you find to be most unique?
So it's a good question. Really, it's not really I don't really have an answer for this particular question because all the principles are connected with each other. So I can't really pull out one without pulling the others along with it. But I would say I would say really, that's a hard one. Yeah, they're all so fundamental, all important. You can't really separate one from the other. Trust connection is a great one. People can. It's a great catchphrase that is easy to, or just a different way of thinking. Creating the creative power of our thoughts, the way our feelings are generated, and how we can rewind the process in order to cultivate a completely different experience for ourselves. That's another really powerful one.
Is there a principle that you find yourself turning to on a personal level?
All of them, they all work hand in hand. I would say on any given day, I mean, you're looking at, initially the focus of our work was relationships and specifically marriage relationship, but it has since grown into personal transformation and relationship transformation on every level. So, and ultimately we find that one can't be without the other. In other words, I can't have a relationship transformation if I have not transformed myself, if I have not shifted really deeply inside. So, and I can't claim that I've shifted deeply inside if I don't see that effect in my relationships. So they both go hand in hand.
Beautiful. So from what I'm hearing, it almost sounds like what has developed in a way is that the relationship principles are not necessarily something that only affect your marriage and your relationship. It actually just impacts who you are as a person. So therefore just impacts your interaction with everything, like your day, your other relationships, yourself. I don't know, something as trivial as schedule making, like in ways it can impact you. Is that right?
For sure. For sure.
Well,
Yeah. Starts with essential value inherent worth. It's the whole way that I see myself, the whole way I relate to myself, my successes, my failures, who I am. I mean, these are the questions that we come at life with.
That's interesting, like every single intricate detail of your everyday life. I remember one time you shared this story. I hope it's okay if I share it, but you're given this example of like cleaning off a shelf, right? Like what the experience is of cleaning off a shelf. Every single person can relate to cleaning off a shelf. We all do this, right? But if you're coming at it because he didn't do it, or you're coming at it from a place of, oh my goodness, it's so dirty and it's so embarrassing, someone's coming into my house. Like, there's always something more going on than just cleaning off a shelf.
So I love that example. It was a great example of how something simple, an everyday task that we do, such as cleaning off a shelf, could be a completely different experience based on what is my internal messaging around that.
Yeah. Which then like has this effect on the rest of your day too. Right. So like it's not just cleaning off your shelf. It then snowballs into how you picked up your kids from school, and then how you made supper, and then how you greet your husband when he comes home, and how you feel about it when you go into the bedroom that night. Like it just kind of all tramples on one another. So so incredible that the principles not just affect you and your relationship with your husband, but has a global impact.
For our last question, and I feel like this was a tease, maybe we'll get you on again to this was
Sure.
just an introduction. We're introducing you to the audience, but you'll be back for more. So I imagine that for you, you ended up running an institution. You went from, like you described, you were privately coaching your colors that you had, and then with the shlichus that Hashem had in mind for you, now you run a whole empire. What has that process been like? And specifically in terms of living the principles, which are about femininity and the power of femininity and the defining features of femininity, how has that impacted you stepping into this role of leading the relationship empire?
Yeah. So I would say like this, first of all, it was gradual. I didn't start off with, a huge group or a growing, we started off with a small little, a sweet small class. So it's developed gradually, but really, I love the example of Devira Hanavia. One of the specialties of her time period as leader of the Yidden was that she actually, if you look in Shaftim, she had the longest time of peace was attributed to her leadership, was 40 years, whereas the other Shaftim were less. There was nobody that reached her time. And the reason given over there was because as a woman, she wasn't leading the Yidden from a top-down approach. She was nurturing so that their relationship to Hashem came from within. And to me, that really embodies what it means to be a feminine leader, which is I'm not here teaching and leading and, leader in the kind of authoritarian or aggressive
or
picture
even just
that
top heavy.
or top heavy, but it's really a process of nurturing each woman, each coach, into bringing out her wisdom and nurturing that the wisdom that we learn in class or that I'm teaching ultimately is going to resonate with her from a very deep place. So that's one element. And the other element is that I'm very aware of desire and delight in this process, which is that it's something that I deeply desire to pass on. And it's also a deeply delightful process to see women transform and grow and create circles of influence of their own.
So beautiful, so feminine. So it sounds like all throughout the process, there's like this experience of like maybe like collaboration and inspiring from within, inspiring leaders as opposed to followers, and hearing how that fills you too. It's almost like this rejuvenating experience instead of feeling like a task or heavy or a weight to bear.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful prime example of feminine leadership. Love
Yeah.
that.
Thank you, ladies.
This was a
So
treat.
gorgeous.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being, you know, what's the word? Pioneers in this work and, and disseminators of these principles in such a powerful and empowering way.
We learned from the best.
Okay, so what we're going to do is something really fun. We're going to do some rapid fire questions. Sara Gita, don't get nervous. It's okay. Whatever you answer is perfect. We just would love to hear your response on everything, but on these questions. So, what book are you in the middle of right now?
The book called, oh gosh, what's the title? What else do I say? What do I say? What else do I say? It's a children's Lift the Flap book. I am always in the middle of that one. It's my kid's favorite nap time story.
Love that.
And I feel it's also the story of my life. Like, what do I say? What else do I say?
Something more. I love that. That's such a great one. Okay, I'm gonna look that one up. Okay, what's one thing that just thinking about it makes you smile?
Okay, awkward, embarrassing moments. Sometimes if I'm just spacing out and my kids see a smile on their face, I'm like, Mommy, what are you thinking about? I'm like, I can't tell you. It's too awkward. That would be my same answer here.
Amazing.
Okay, what's your favorite place in the world?
Home.
Hmm.
And someplace beautiful. Hindi's home as well.
Oh, love that.
What is something that you think of that when you think of it, it's like an inspiration boost, like an idea or a sentence or a pasuk?
Personally, the Rebbe's belief in us as Chassidim, as leaders, as as somebody who's, in other words, like it's not my own kayach. I don't have to worry about whatever I'm teaching being my own kayach or my own understanding.
Beautiful. Cool. Okay.
So beautiful. Lovely.
Rapid fire means no, that's so beautiful. Just go to the next one.
I think we're done.
We are done. I have one more if you want.
Sure.
Okay. In one word, how do you want your coming week to look?
Oh, in one word. Okay, this is already beyond a word. What?
You could say a sentence if you want.
Okay, I'll rewind it. Gorgeous, peaceful, connected, vibrant.
Love those words.
Great week. And the final question is, who's your favorite? Me or Hindi? Quick, rapid fire. Don't think.
You. Totally.
Kidding.
Love it. Love it. We feel unconditionally loved. So thank you so much, Sara Gita. Really, really thank you. And again, like Chayale said, this is just the beginning.
We would love to hear your feedback, thoughts, and questions.
Please leave a comment below or email us at yourrelationship@gmail.com.
Looking forward to connecting with you.
See you next time.